Hello, you're watching the Nouvel Esprit video series on the theology of the body. In this video, we are focusing on audience 19. We are your hosts. I am Jeremy Hossotter.
And I'm Guillermo Moreno.
So in this audience, we're going to begin by reviewing what was previously talked about. So JP2 wants to draw our attention to Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Wherein it speaks about the creative perspective of human existence. And what he's referring to here is procreation. So it is in procreation that we are introduced to a new human life, a new human existence. And so it is through procreation that human existence is renewed. And this perspective of procreation is rooted in the human consciousness and the spousal meaning of the body of the first man, first woman. And so when we talk about original innocence, that state of the first man, first woman, before they disobeyed God and fell into original sin, they were in this situation that manifests the perfect ethos of gift. And by this ethos, man or the woman is not just a mere object for the man. The kind of nakedness that the woman has, wherein she feels shame, shows up after original sin. And it's this kind of objectifying that shame comes about. And we will learn more about this in, I think we're on audience 26, 27. Now, in Genesis chapter 2, then, the fact that there is no shame means there is a lack of this objectification. There's this lack of the man and the woman objectifying each other as mere objects, as treating them as a mere object. And so this state, this lack of objectification, then refers to a purity of heart within the first man, first woman that makes it impossible for such objectification. And so this means that this purity of heart is a union in consciousness of the gift and reality of each human person as a gift willed by God. That God has created the first man, first woman, each for his and her own sake as a gift for the other. And Guillermo.
Yeah, excuse me if I may add something, because interestingly, we come to understanding of a lot of concepts of our faith through negatives. We know what something is by analyzing what it is not. Regarding this lack of objectification and this lack of shame. Now, we know that these things came after the fall, right? And we understand that evil is a lack of good, of a good somewhere. So by taking this lack of shame, this lack of objectification, in light of the fact that good is something positive, we have these kind of double negatives. And I know I'm kind of just jumping around a little bit, but point being, it looks like in this ethos, the way that man was originally created, this quote unquote lack of objectification is actually a fullness of something else. There's a positive there that is difficult to explain because it's easier to describe things in terms of what they lacked.
I like that. I appreciate your comments there, Guillermo, about how this purity of heart really signifies a fullness.
Yes,
And
thank you.
in fact, when we get to the next chapter, because audiences 1 through 23 composes the first chapter of the theology body. When we get to chapter 2, the question of the fullness of the gift is going to become thematic, where JP2 is going to want to draw us into what is the fullness of the ethos. So that is
Okay,
something that is upcoming. I'm glad you
great,
brought that up.
great.
I guess, did you have any other points, Guillermo?
No, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, that is a great insight. One more thing to indicate here is this dialectic again of objectivity and subjectivity.
Mhm.
Um, these are technical philosophical terms, and JP2 uses them in some kind of different some different ways. So man is a subject, and his subjectivity is that which is makes man man. So it's referring to his ability to have free will to think, or in terms of JP2 has been talking about self-knowledge, self-consciousness, self-determination. All these topics we have been talking about in the previous audiences in the context of first man, first woman. So all these things that composes the interiority of man, man's subjectivity, it brings us to what JP2 calls the objectivity of the gift. So you have man in his experiences of his body, its spousal meaning. Now we have procreation. We have the ethos of gift. We have the conjugal union of the man and woman and their original unity. We have the experiences of original solitude. All of that brings us to the reality of the gift itself. And so our subjectivity is nourished by the reality of this gift. That's what JP2 is getting at with these terms objectivity and subjectivity. Objectivity is referring to the concrete reality of the gift. And that reality informs and nourishes our subjectivity, our experiential encounter with the reality of the gift of being, of our spousal meaning of our bodies as male and female, as masculine and feminine, and this conjugal act, the one flesh union. You still with us, Guillermo?
I am.
All right. Did you have anything else before we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, forgive me. I want to say we haven't quite described the word ethos.
Ah,
Say defining it, have we?
sure. You want to define it for us?
This is how I would describe the word ethos. It's not a paradigm, but just analogously, what imagine if ethos was like a paradigm in the heart. Yes, it's kind of like worldview, but more from a disposition and perspective. So when it comes to ethos of gift, and I don't want to jump ahead into chapter 2, the concepts of chapter 2, but the heart's state of being, the person's state of being, is in a particular way that in the beginning, this is what it was like. So man's state of being, in the way that he experienced himself and the world around him, there was this ethos of gift, specifically between himself and the woman. Their state of being was one in which they fulfilled the spousal meaning of the body. And I don't want to jump ahead too much, but yeah, I just wanted to describe ethos by going into just the experience of man before the fall. And I hope I just hope that the analogy of paradigm helped, because I know it's not a paradigm per se. The paradigm is something else, but analogous to that.
Right. No, that is great that you brought that up. In fact, we will get to that more in audience 24. So it's a little ways away since we're in 19. But that does bring up a good distinction we need to keep in mind,
Okay.
is that ethos is not quite the same thing as ethics, even though they're very interrelated.
Yes.
Ethics, we think of how to live morally. What are the moral norms? What are they? Why are they? What's our reasoning for them? But ethos is deeper, since it has something to do with the heart, and JP2 is actually going to develop that distinction more in audience 24. Right. Yeah. Another great point, Guillermo.
Thank you.
Original sin and the ethos a gift, huh? So this audience is kind of, or this part of the audience is a little bit of a foreshadowing. When man committed original sin, he lost his original innocence. And that means then that the spousal meaning of the body ceased to be a reality of revelation and grace. And so the spousal meaning of the body now becomes a task given to man. This task is going to be inscribed and demanded by the ethos of gift. And it's going to be inscribed deep into the heart of man. And so, because the task of rediscovering the spousal meaning of the body is something etched into man's heart, this means that man can discover again for himself after the rebellion against God, in the state of original sin, he can rediscover the spousal meaning of the body. And so man is going to be called to be a guardian of the mystery of this gift, the mystery of himself being a subject, and to defend these mysteries from objectification. Yeah, I really do get the feeling, Guillermo, that he's preparing us for chapter 2 in this audience.
Yes, yes.
Did you have anything you want to add about this, or you did?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like the previous slide had much more meat and potatoes, so to speak. The body as sacrament. So, man is the highest expression of the divine gift because he bears with himself the inner dimension of gift. Man is made in the image and likeness of God, and because of this image, he, in his innermost dimension, bears this image of the gift, because we can describe the internal relations of God as Trinity, as gift giving. And so this inner dimension within man becomes a primordial sacrament. If we keep in mind this general definition that JP2 gives us, a sacrament is a sign that efficaciously transmits into the visible world the invisible mystery hidden in God from eternity, end quote. And what that means then is the body and the sex, the body as masculine or feminine, makes visible the divine truth and love, because man is created out of truth and love and goodness. He is created by God, and his body manifests these facts visibly. And so the body is a primordial sacrament. You there, Guillermo?
Yes, I am. No, I didn't quite have anything more to add.
Yeah. I just find this argument very radical. The
How
body as a
so?
sacrament. Well, just think about today. We've lost the we've lost kind of the sacredness of the body and its sacrality. We don't treat it as a sacrament anymore.
You think culturally we did at some point?
You know, that's an interesting thing. Like you just think about our bodies as sacrament, and you think about the culture. Like you think about clothing. It's perfectly
Mm,
okay now for a woman to go outside in a sports bra and tight shorts and go jogging. That's perfect jogging attire now, right?
yeah,
There's something about the culture that I think we've kind of lost sight to where now it seems we're allowing for objectivization of man and woman in many ways that were not prevalent before.
yeah. I think how I would describe it, maybe because of our fallen humanity, it was always challenging to see the body as sacrament, but now it's just worse.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. There's always been the challenge, but it seems like today we have a special problem with it.
Hmm.
Just especially given our problems with sexuality, the conjugal act, question of transgenderism, for example, self-mutilation through voluntary sterilization procedures. You know, there's all these different things,
Yeah, I completely see that.
or even drugs for that matter. And I guess with that, one of the greatest tasks we have then is retrieving this truth that the body is a sacrament and just the ethos that statement brings with it, you know.
Yes.
And that's what part of theology of body is all about. So it's going to be exciting to see where JP2 takes this. All right, let's see here. Moving on. Let's see. There we go. Here is a great quote. Do you want to read it, Guillermo?
Yes, the body, in fact, and only the body is capable of making visible what is invisible, the spiritual and the divine. It has been created to transfer into the visible reality of the world, the mystery hidden from eternity and in God, and thus to be a sign of it. End quote. Now, the reason why I chuckled a little bit is because that's precisely uh, what I was recalling, and as I was skimming through uh, audience 19, right when I found it, you displayed it and asked if I could read it. So there it is. Here it is.
That's funny.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, no, it's a great quote.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Uh, did you have anything you want to add about this?
It just says um, more about who we are, made in the image and likeness of God.
Yeah.
And yeah, and okay, we are a part of creation. Yeah, yeah, I think I'd be a little redundant. Um, I would just like to emphasize what was in the previous slide, what a sacrament is and how ourselves Like our body, it's who we are.
Yeah.
It's the visible sign of who we are, and the invisible nature of who we are. Yes, it's our soul, our consciousness, and so forth. But we can't separate that from the body.
Right. That is one of the things I really loved about Dante's The Divine Comedy, is that in the end, when Dante is viewing the inner life of the Trinity, he sees the human face inside. There's something about the body as participating in the image of God that has to be imaging something, right?
Yeah.
In the inner life of the Trinity. And Dante just captured that very beautifully at the end of his work. That's been a source of constant reflection for me, is actually that passage of the Divine Comedy.
Great.
All right. The body as sacrament continues. So, being made in the image and likeness of God is a sacrament of creation, which we have said before. So let's see. Through man being made in the image of likeness of God, this is a revealing of the sacramentality of creation. Through man's body and his sex, he becomes a visible sign of God. And so when we look at the biblical text of Genesis chapter 2, verses 24 and 25, they reveal to us that through the becoming of one flesh and naked without shame, holiness has entered into the world together with man. Part of the situation of original innocence of the first man, first woman is the fact that they were holy. And so original innocence then is holiness itself through this sincere gift of self. And through the body, man then experiences it as the subject of holiness. And this again brings us to what we were talking about earlier, that we have to bring back this kind of consciousness of our bodies as sacrament and as something holy, something that we ought to maintain, to care for, to preserve, right? There's a certain piety towards the body, if we dare use the word piety.
And just going back to Christ's dialogue with the Pharisees, just all the more reason for why he alludes to the beginning. This is what it was like. The reason why things are different now is precisely because of the fall. But in the beginning, it was not so. And this just sheds more light on what we've already addressed so far in this series.
Yeah. It's interesting because as we go through the theology of body, we're going to be coming back again and again to the beginning. In fact,
Yes.
chapter 2 is going to start talking about new biblical texts, but then we have to go back to the beginning again. All right. Now, one interesting detail that I really liked was how JP2 teased out that Genesis chapter 2, verses 24 through 25, is the first marriage feast of humanity, wherein you have this original fullness of man's experience, wherein he's experiencing the fullness of the spousal meaning of the body as something that has its origin in God and the mystery of creation. And so this also reveals to us that the economy of truth and love is life and not death. And just some foreshadowing, man is called to life, to glory. He's not called to death. God is a God of the living and not of the dead.
That's good foreshadowing.
Yeah. As I said, Jake is really setting up for
Yes.
his future audiences in this one. Just gives us an indication of the direction he wants to go. All right. Did you have any last comments, Guillermo?
Just one question for clarification.
Oh, yeah.
Did JP2 have the theology of the body already pretty much set, and all he's doing is providing bits and pieces every Wednesday, or is he working on this and presenting what he comes up with every Wednesday? Not what he comes up with, but what he concludes.
Okay. Yeah, just a warning, your microphone just started sounding a little funny.
Oh, did it?
Now it sounds normal. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I don't know. Let me see.
Okay.
Okay.
But to answer your question, the theology of the body is originally written as a book.
Mm,
It wasn't like a fully developed book, but there was a manuscript,
okay.
and that manuscript was the basis for the theology of body. It was written in
Oh, okay.
Polish. And in fact, to the interested reader, Michael Waldstein, the translator of Theology of the Body into English, talks about this in his introduction. So let's see here. Where is it at? I would assume it's in the first part where Waldstein's talking about the text itself as a genre, translation, and textual basis. But that is a great question. Let's see here. Okay, actually, looking at the introduction right now, Guillermo, we can add some more details. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yes.
if the whoever's listening, if you're interested, look at pages 6 through 11 of the introduction, where it talks about the text. Okay. So the audiences of the theology of body was originally written in Polish. And let's see here. Originally, so there was a completed book that's the basis for 129 catechesis, and there's a total of 133. And most of the book is already translated, or not translated, but most of the book. So the book was used, but not all so the catechesis have a little bit more that was not in the book. He added on. And then it looks like that there was a couple of audiences in the theology body that were not actually delivered. So that's another interesting tidbit. Did you have any other questions, Guillermo?
No, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is something that we should go over in an introduction video.
Great.
All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to our discussion of Audience 19 and a little bit on the textual origins of the theology body, which is something we promise you to go into further detail in a future video. If you have been enjoying our content, please subscribe to our social media such as YouTube and whatever else. Consider giving us a financial support either through PayPal or becoming a Patreon supporter. Our link for Patreon is here on this slide. You can also check out our website. We have the URL, and on there we have many social media platforms. If you go to nouvelesprit.com/subscribe, a very important part of our work is also our podcast, which Guillermo, can you give us some more details about?
Yes, so our podcast touches on various topics, always through the lens of Catholic personalism. Now, our main platform is buzzsprout.com, but if you go there, you can listen to our episodes there or on any of the platforms that we are listed in, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify.
Yeah, our podcast is listed on about 20 different platforms. So if you have a podcast platform that you enjoy using, it's probably on there. And you can find all that information on our website at the subscribe page. Anything else, Guillermo?
No, just to please be sure to keep us and our mission in your prayers.
Yes, please keep us in your prayers. And I guess with that, I'm going to say goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
God bless.